All right, so in the afternoon end of the day, we came off to 289 or so. Likely a reaction to things getting heated with the China, us implementing the 10% tariffs. As you can see this morning, we are gapping right to this 290. So if you want to understand whether or not the market is going to start to care at all about the escalation with China, it's going to look something like this. And by the way, in the after hours, I think people got a little bit nervous after the market closed because we came all the way back down to this Tuesday support last Tuesday. So we're right above 290, which is perfect in terms of judging whether or not the market's going to be impacted. I think the burden is definitely on the sellers to show the market's going to be impacted because we have been ignoring pretty much everything the last few months. So let's go to the 5-minute. Okay, so if we look at yesterday's action, we came in, we dipped below 290, we started to hold above. Second time when we made the new low, then we held it. So people were definitely using 290 as the spot to sell, and it did follow through almost $1 there. I say right on the open, as long as we stay below this failure area from yesterday afternoon. 290.20 to 290.30. We fail right here, and then you see us start to hold below 290. That would be a setup for a test of yesterday's closing low. And then obviously, if we had a little bit of a mini meltdown, it would be the after hours low, which coincides with last Tuesday's support area. Let's take a look at IWM. That's not linked. And again, I think it was 5 out of 6 days now where we failed at 171.50, which is quite remarkable. So we've been talking about this since the second or third time it happened, but it's kind of cool just from a pure technical perspective that for some reason this 171.50 level, it actually opened right there yesterday and just went straight down, went to last week's low and then caught a bid. So with this kind of break to the prior low here, I'd be watching just to see if we hold a little bit lower today. So 170.40, this area right here. We fail there on the open and then take out yesterday's close. This is kind of the area I was targeting if we had a down move, if we failed here, and eventually what would we do right here at what is this? 168.60. And then we know with IWM, sometimes it gets out of hand. Like if we zoom out a little bit, like this move here was kind of out of hand, from 169 to 162 in like a few days. Anyway, it looks like we could potentially have one of these like kind of meltdown type days or meltdown multi-day situations. So IWM does tend to be more volatile generally than IWM. So if we actually do an uptrend channel from the low there, it's kind of here. I feel like this is a reasonable spot for it to sell off to now. 168 to 168.5, and then we'll see. All right, I would say just turn up your speaker. I got a bunch of goods from everyone else. All right, let's start with Oracle. So Oracle always reports really, really late, almost before the beginning of the next earnings season. The numbers looked good to me. The thing that I think they sold off on was the revenue was a little light, and plus, if if you look at it year over year, the revenue is really not growing anymore. And that seemed to be the concern, but it's already rebounded back up. Let's just look at it on the daily just to put this in perspective. So it's held up very well considering it just seems like, I don't know, the growth is really muted in this name. And it's still consolidating really close to the highs. So where are we now? 47.5. We're like right here. I like Oracle. I mean, I tend to make at least a couple of trades in Oracle every time it reports. I find that for a stock that has very little volatility normally, I usually can capture $1 in it. So just looking at the initial reaction, they took it almost down to 46. It caught the bid and it's having trouble here. So 47.50 is going to be the important price this morning. And you can just see failed, it fit, and then it stayed up there for a while, but it couldn't hold above. And the pullback low was 46.70. So what do I have for resistance on there? I have 47 as inflection. I have 47.60, 48. Well, clearly this is why we have 47.60. I think I actually also got the 47.60 from the daily. So people are watching that level. And believe it or not, this is like probably over 2.5 ATRs, this range here. So that's that's the range that I would stick with. I think it's a little bit tricky. I mean, you could buy it for a break if it starts holding above 60 cents here. I'm not really counting on much more upside than this 48. Obviously, if it pops right on the open, the first move is up, it comes in, and it doesn't drop this 47.60 area and then takes out the morning high, then I guess we're looking at a gap fill. But I think the burden's on the buyers right now to prove that that can happen. Let us go to this little drug stock. What was it? BKTX. Oh, it's already really selling off. Okay. Yeah, I guess it's not that bad. Let's go to the 2 minutes, see if we can see this clearly. So this one's going to be the most in play stock in the market today, and probably fairly tradable. Just want you to see on the daily how much it's been up. So this was a dollar stock, and then clearly their drugs seem to be working small, and it went up to $10 here, double topped at 13 and change, and now it's gapping up again. So in this situation, I feel like the most recent time we had something like this where we had a low pricer that had been up a 10, had been up a ton, and then it gapped up a lot. It got crushed. It just couldn't hold that gap. But in this case, it's already traded 4.5 million shares, double its average daily volume. So there's people definitely playing games trying to keep it up here in the low 20s. You can see all the volume being done. If we zoom in on the 2 minute, just to get a better picture. So there was definitely someone selling here at 25.80. Failed here initially, came back up, it failed. Pullback low is here. It's actually where it's supporting. So, I mean, people are watching this trading action and using this 22, whatever this is, 22.30, what I have in the sheet, 22 after hours, okay. So if this pullback low here was 22, they're buying it in front of that. Kind of doesn't make a lower high, something like that in this area right here, 24 to 24.5. A lot of times when these things top out in the after hours and early in the pre-market, what they do is they'll make a lower high and then it'll have like a hard down move. And the great thing about this, the volume is already it's already trading more volume than most stocks do like after 9:30. So there's going to be a lot of liquidity. Obviously, people are focused on this because they think when a stock gaps up this much, $12, they're probably thinking $3, $4, $5 range, and there's going to be a lot of money there, like almost like an AMD, what it's been doing lately with all of its intraday volatility. Just as much, probably more liquidity. So I think the easy entry kind of was when it failed up here a few times. If you're short from earlier from up there, I would not be thinking about covering until it kind of flushed closer to $20 and seeing what happened. And I'd be looking to see if it makes a lower high here. I would probably change my bias if it moved up like this, then came in, started to hold above 24. Then I'd be looking at the after hours high, 26, and then kind of see what happens from there. But certainly, even if it sells off to like $18 a share, it's still going to be up $7. So just keep that in mind as if you're buying it in a pull-in, that it's still up a ton, even if it drops like $5 from these levels. And then hopefully it'll compress later in the day. You can trade it off a compressed consolidation. The next one is GIS. This is for the more novice traders. We also tend to look at this one almost every quarter. It's not a high ATR stock, but for some reason during earnings, sometimes it has some pretty wild moves. Sometimes they're clean too. So in this case, they had solid number. This is a bit of a beaten down stock too, and the guidance wasn't great, so that's why it's coming off a little bit. Okay, so I mean, clearly there's a lot of issue. I don't know if has any real chance of getting back up to this failure area, but clearly over the last few months, between 47.5 and 48, it's just had all sorts of trouble. And it's supported coming into earnings 45.30, which I have on the sheet, 45.35, and 46 as support. I'll zoom out a little bit more. So here's the picture. It was in this downtrend. Remember, we looked at it, this one here, it came down a ton. I actually thought that was overdone, but it did actually go lower over the next month before it finally bottomed. There might not be any great trades in this today, but if it's showing some strength holding above, like, let's say 47, it might be interesting to trade it back up to the resistance. And if by some miracle it actually closes above 48, it's a pretty nice little gap to fill there. I'm gonna move on to the next thing. And then I wanted to just bring up TLRY. So TLRY is, the pattern it's following now is pretty similar to other IPOs, hot IPOs. I did that video. If you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, check it out, because it really gives you an idea of when this will finally have its real down move, where it gets cut in half. And the short answer is not for a while. It's gapping up to the mid 130s. It's already had two pretty good pullbacks since I've been back from vacation. It had this $10 pullback, and then it had this $25 pullback here, which it's amazing you can't even really see it on the daily. It just shows you how strong the uptrend is. And you know, that's it. I mean, it has these 15 to 20% pullbacks, and then goes to higher prices. No different than GoPro did. No different than, I forget what the other IPOs were, but the same. This has Shake Shack, and there's a few other ones. Twilio. I haven't even looked at Twilio, but it's probably the same thing. And you know, it's a supply-demand imbalance. There's just not enough supply, and it's not only is it as a hot IPO, it's like the sector too, and all that. But you know, same thing today. It's gapping up a ton. When it does this, it tends to have a pull-in. You know, what does that look like? It probably looks like, you know, low 120s if it pulls in, and it would be a blip again on the daily. At some point, it's gonna put in a level where it's having trouble getting above, and the range will actually expand. It'll be something like, you know, to the pullback low from a couple of days ago, like 98. So let's call it 135. You might actually get a move down here, and then a move back up to 120 where it fails. and then you'll start to see it close below these high 90s, and that will be the beginning of it coming back down to like here, or at least to here. So, but again, this could take where are we now? Middle of September. It could be in November before we actually see that down here. We definitely in the next couple of weeks could see it, having big range like up here. But we'll see. There's no reason to think it can't just keep on going up and just establishing that big range. Anyway, I just wanted to highlight that and just bigger picture, talk about it. I think when it starts to compress more and have tight consolidations intraday, it'll be a better thing for you to look at. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. So let me just quickly work through the rest of this for you. So NTNX, this got hammered yesterday on a Google product announcement. Most of the analysts seem to think it's an overreaction, but regardless, we've already been looking at this recently, so it's already gapping up. We want to see what happens here at $50, basically. If it comes into this area here, fails, comes back down, starts to hold below 50, you see it below 49.5, then the market just doesn't like that news. The flip side, obviously, is if it can hold above 50, and then you have 52, 53 is kind of this resistance area here. I'm kind of curious to see whether it closes above or below 50 today. Pretty much got hammered yesterday, came down to this low from late July. It's already done 130,000 shares in the pre-market. Obviously, it's up about $2.50 now, so we shall see. AMD has been a really good trading stock the last couple of weeks. Just intraday has just had tons of turns to the downside, to the upside. As it marches higher, let's draw that trend. It's still working its way higher. I would say this, just looking at it and seeing kind of these wild up and down moves here the last few days, if this actually has a close below 32, I think it's probably going to pull back in and test this area down here. And then we'll see. So that's going to be, this 32 is going to kind of be the key. It got really hammered a few days ago, came into $30. The next day it gapped up a little bit, made the lower high, tested, failed there again, and the pre-market is above it. So 33, you can just see this trend. Like once this, it's just all about momentum right now. And if this trend starts to break and then has another down leg, people are going to start to get nervous. And we might be right back down at the support from a couple of weeks ago. But it's a really good trading stock right now. I highly encourage you to kind of keep it on your list and have alerts on it every day. There's some good trades on it almost every day. And by the way, I would just say if it does, if it continues to consolidate, near the high here for another day or two, kind of like what it did here for a few days after pulling back, another up leg, 34 resistance. Teva, right. So Teva was on the list yesterday for in play. We didn't really have anything else going on. It does look like it might be setting up to touch this 23 this morning. 23 to 22.87 support there. Failed on the open to hold above 24. I think I bought it right on the open at right here at the low. Didn't really pay too much attention to it. Actually popped up pretty good. It popped up almost 24.50. I was able to get sales up there, and then just got stopped out when I guess below 23.80 right here in the afternoon. Sellers in control. You can kind of see the downtrend that formed. So I would say 23.70 now. From a bigger picture perspective, it's interesting. Buffett took a big position in this, or his lieutenants did, and they added to it. It's a messy. Just looking at it, I would say if it starts to have some closes above like the low 24s, that would be very bullish in it. And then Kroger. So Kroger I bought yesterday on the open at into this longer term support. It was actually a pretty easy trade. Right on the open got hit. It immediately was back above 28 and sold some as it got closer to $29. To me though, I'm looking at this from a bigger picture perspective, looking to see if it works its way back up to $30 plus. The reason, I just want to show you the daily quickly and then we'll wrap it, is the numbers have been good the last few quarters. After it had this down and has been moving higher, this quarter again, they reported good numbers. The burden, I think, is just on the sellers to show that this is not going to continue back up above 30. But certainly if it closes below yesterday's low, then I would give up on the idea. But the risk's already been covered. It had that dollar plus pop, sold some into that, and so we're in a position of strength. The next step for another up leg to 30 would be it consolidating in the high 28s and taking out yesterday's high. Oh, yeah, I should point, yeah, BABA. So BABA's just been acting really weak. It overreacted to the upside on the China tariff news, whatever. I was actually surprised by how much it went up. Until from a big picture perspective, until it starts to have closes above 165, it's going to be messy. The actual low day, it went from, what was it, 52 to 58. So I guess 58's back in play. So remember this is the day where I thought it overreacted and then it actually followed through for another day. This 58, if it starts to hold above there again, people are going to look to push it back up. And then a higher low is actually right where we are right now. It's like 55.5 to 56. This was the pullback on the day that it bottomed, was right here. So these levels are in play. It's like right, literally you can just extend them out. So and the other one, by the way, Facebook is below 160. And so we have that, the seller's in control here. I would just point out that 157-ish is back in March when it actually broke to the upside and went to $200. That's where that started from. So I would have alerts down at like 158 and a quarter, 158, 157.75. I'm going to buy some into a pullback there, and then we'll see what happens.